All right, guys, so the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, whom is currently under attack by the liberal media because they see him as the next Trump, right? The media is desperately trying to find a new Trump, right? A new figure that they can go after and that they can make a villain so that they can prop up their failing ratings, all right? The media is corporate, okay? And corporations got to make money, right? So they're trying to go after Ron DeSantis, right? And they do this with everybody, essentially, in the GOP, okay? They try to do it with Josh Hawley, right? Back, when the whole Capitol incident happened, they saw Josh Hawley, right, as somebody that was smart, right, talented, obviously says all the right things, and they decided to go after him because at that time it was thought that he could be the successor to Trump, right? So they're gonna go after him, right? And I personally like Josh Hawley better than I like Ron DeSantis, right? But I like both. And Ron DeSantis is the new target. Now, Ron DeSantis is basically on a crusade against corporate media because they basically ran a smear piece trying to accuse him of a pay-to-play scheme with Publix and vaccines. Obviously, this is something that was kind of disproven by two Democrats in the state who have vouched for Ron DeSantis in a rare bipartisan moment, right? That tells you everything you need to know about the actual truth in the story. But Ron DeSantis, right, in his response to, the corporate media coming after him, really was talking and doing hand gestures in a way that I think is reminding a lot of people of President Trump. Take a listen.
They cut out everything that showed that their narrative was a piece of horse manure. And it shows you how dishonest. These are smear merchants. That's why nobody trusts corporate media. They are a disaster in what they're doing. They knew what they were doing was a lie. I knew what they were doing was a lie. Everybody here knows what they were doing is a lie. They know that we know they're lying, and yet they continue to lie. And they lied, and they lied, and they lied. We offered them the information, and they declined to interview the key people because they didn't want to let go of the narrative. Well, guess what? There's going to be consequences for that. I know corporate media thinks that they can just run over people. You ain't running over this governor. I'm punching back, and I'm going to continue to do it until these smear merchants are held accountable. You know it's New York corporate media. When you come to Florida and attack Publix, maybe they like their dogs better than Publix, but not much. It's one of the most popular brands in the state. It would have been malpractice to cut Publix out of assisting. And I know we were able to expand retail sites in Bay. People were very happy. But what they're saying is a total crock that somehow only Publix was getting it. It is nonsense. And we told them it was that, and they cut it out. They spliced it because they can't handle the truth. And they know if they would have put out everything, they wouldn't have had a story. And so they went for the smear. They've been caught red-handed. Now, see, all these corporate media people, they all scratch each other's back. So, a lot of them just are pretending it didn't happen. They're not going to really police their own. But we're going to have a lot of people that are going to police their own. But the message is for people out there, unless you're a partisan leftist, do not trust corporate media. You can't trust them. They're not trustworthy. They will lie. They will smear. And then they just move on to the next target and think that they're going to be able to get away with it. You ain't getting away with it here, okay? You come down to our state and you try to smear people, we're going to bite back and we're going to hold you accountable. So this is not over by any stretch of the imagination.
All right, guys. So that video right there has sparked an interesting debate in conservative circles, right, around 2024, right? A lot of people saw that video and was like, okay, this guy is very, very similar to Trump, right? In the way he, makes his hand gestures, the way he kind of, talks about the media, right? He seems very, very Trump-ish, right? Or at the very least Trump-like, right? And Ron DeSantis right now is a rising star, right? He is a rising star for a number of reasons, right? The first is because of the way he handled the lockdowns, right? He refused to go along with the media narrative. He kept the state open, right? He kept schools open. He kept the state running, right? And now his decision to do that is turning out to be the right move, right? Because the media said that, hey, this was going to end up being terrible, right? And basically the data shows that Florida's not necessarily the best at COVID, but they're not the worst. They're basically in the middle of the pack, okay? For a state that essentially stayed open. So, I mean, most people would call that a success. Again, this makes the media mad, right? He also responded to the rise in protests by basically passed a law that would give business owners more legal room to defend their businesses, right, in the face of rioting and looting, okay? And now the media is going after him for this vaccine thing, and the way he's handling the corporate media, right? The way he's going after the corporate media is very Trump-like, right? So it has sparked an interesting debate about two things: whether or not DeSantis is like Trump, and whether or not Ron DeSantis may be able to beat Trump in 2024, right? Is Ron DeSantis now the front runner? Okay. And I think this is an interesting debate. And this is a debate that a lot of people are going to be having over the next 3 years, right? Going into the 2024 primaries. Okay. So I want to chime in on this early, right? Early. Okay. To give you guys my opinion on this. Here's the thing. I'm going to talk about Trump versus DeSantis in 2024 based off what we know right now in 2021, right? So obviously, guys, this stuff can change, right? I'm just speculating based off of the current situation where we're currently at, okay? So this is all up in the air. I don't know. It's just an interesting debate. I think, personally, it's impossible for me to know right now whether or not DeSantis is the front runner, right? Or whether or not he would beat Trump. But the more time that passes and the more I see from DeSantis, the more I am convinced that if Trump does run, DeSantis could give Trump a run for his money. He could. It's very possible, right? Now, that's not to say that he will beat Trump for sure. I don't know. But I do think he can get Trump a run for his money. And there's a number of reasons why, right? The first reason is because Trump is at a major disadvantage when it comes to social media, right? He doesn't have access to social media. It is hard for him to get his message out there to the masses, right? I think that one of the things that made Trump so powerful is that the media always had eyes on him. He always had the attention on him, right? And that advantage has kind of disappeared a little bit, right? Trump has been relegated to releasing messages via email and doing interviews on Newsmax and occasionally Fox News, right? And that's not to say that mainstream media has completely forgot about Trump. No, they haven't. It's just that he hasn't necessarily been the center of attention since his impeachment trial, right? And I think that kind of is a disadvantage to Trump. So in 4 years, again, it's impossible for me to know how relevant Trump is going to remain. Now, obviously, Trump is trying to become a kingmaker in the Republican Party, and him focusing on that versus himself, it could lend itself that people focus more on the candidates that are in the Trump wing of the party, such as DeSantis, at least for right now, than on Trump himself, right? That's just kind of what happens when you are a king maker, right? You kind of got to take a step back and let those who you're trying to make kings, right, try to get positions, you have to kind of let them shine, right? Trump, if he's really trying to be a kingmaker here, he can't be overshadowing those who he's trying to get elected, okay? But with that being said, come election season, if Trump decides to run, he'll probably get that advantage back in terms of having the mainstream media pay attention to him. Now, who knows whether or not he's going to get back on social media in terms of the mainstream platforms. He's supposed to be starting his own platform. Again, it remains to be seen, how that's going to work out. Now, when it comes to DeSantis, right, one of the things that really makes me think that he can give Trump a run for his money is that DeSantis, I can tell he's a very, very, very savvy politician. Okay, he's a savvy politician. there's no doubt in my mind that he's picked up those mannerisms from Trump, that he's watched Trump speak. He's watched the way Trump does things, and he has emulated that, right? And this is something that smart people do. Smart people emulate those who are successful. They take from those who are more successful than them, and they make it their own. And DeSantis has done that, right? He's also the governor of a state like Florida that is very much pro-Trump, right? But it's also a moderate state, right? Some will argue that states like, Florida, Ohio, some of these other states, right? These more moderate states, these swing states, are representations of America, right? Representations of the country as a whole. And the fact that he's won in that state and also has, good favorability ratings as of right now in that state tells me that he has a grasp on how to win over moderates, okay? And guys, I'm giving my opinion here from a political analysis perspective. This is about who I believe people will probably end up voting for. This is not about who I would vote for. It's not what it's about. It's about who I believe people will vote for, okay? And DeSantis being able to win over moderates is a huge advantage over Trump, at least as of right now, okay? Because there's an argument to be made that, with all the things that have happened, that Trump may have turned off some more moderate voters. Now, again, that remains to be seen because, we would need another election to determine that for sure, but there's an argument to be made there. And that Ron DeSantis may be Trump-like, but not necessarily come with everything that comes with having President Trump, right? And I think that's something that people really need to think about, right? When it comes to DeSantis versus Trump, right? If DeSantis, who's a governor, who's been a senator, who's had a lot of government experience, if, he's Trump-like, but he doesn't necessarily come with, some of the negative things that's associated with Trump, right? For example, a lot of, the negative media coverage from Trump is definitely because the mainstream media has, went after Trump in an unfair way. But, it would be dishonest for me to sit here and tell you that Trump didn't put some of that on himself, right? He definitely did. DeSantis has shown that he has an ability to attack the media and to go after the media for false narratives without necessarily putting his own foot in his mouth, right? And I think that that is something that's very valuable, and that keeps somebody like DeSantis from turning off, again, more moderate voters and those who even lean left, right? So I think that DeSantis has a strong grasp on that, and if he can take away all the good things that Trump has brought to the table, right, at least when it comes to rhetoric as of right now, that's going to play into his favor. Now, it remains to be seen, if Ron DeSantis is really an economic populist. It seems that he takes a more traditionally conservative view on economics. But again, he is the governor of a state that voted for a $15 an hour minimum wage and that voted to legalize medical marijuana. So, I just think that it is interesting to think about whether or not Ron DeSantis has a leg up on Trump, right? And I will argue to a lot of people who, probably think that there's no way that, DeSantis could beat Trump. I think people really need to think long and hard about the scenario in which Ron DeSantis could possibly split the Trump vote, right? Again, we're talking about 3 or 4 years from now. We don't know. I'm just saying it's a possibility that DeSantis could split the Trump vote and then take all the moderates or those that have left the GOP or the Republican Party because of Trump, right? And if he can bring those people back, right, if he can split hairs there while also getting, splitting Trump's base, I think, again, he probably has a good chance, right? He probably has a good chance. This is currently a debate that a lot of people are going to be having over the next 3 to 4 years as DeSantis starts to rise in popularity, because I think a lot of people are seeing DeSantis as, a more refined version of President Trump. And me personally, I always liked Trump the best when Trump was more refined, right? When he was more measured in his dealings with the media, right? And the way he put out certain messages. I liked a lot of Trump's messaging doing after the election in regards to, the stimulus in regards to some of his announcements that he was made when he was being a lot more careful about the things that he said, right? I think that if Trump did that a little bit more when he was president, I think that it would have played into an advantage for him. But moving forward, we don't know what Trump is going to be in 2024. We don't know exactly, what positions he's going to take because, again, the GOP is evolving, right? At least as of right now. It seems that they're evolving on some issues. And, 4 years from now, the party could look, significantly different, right? So I think there's a lot of wild cards. But I'm just making this video right now as a perspective, right? And kind of a time capsule on my opinions regarding DeSantis versus Trump, whom, right now it seems that DeSantis is, outside of Trump, the leader. Now, all the polls still show and still indicate that Trump is the man. Trump is the guy. But, I do think that, it is an interesting debate as to whether or not DeSantis could compete. Okay? So, who knows? Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.